Thank you so much for joining us for the second part of our Privacy and Social Networks convocation. A special thank you to Chuck and the Budge Library staff for planning and facilitating today's convocations. I think the first session and following the first session can be quite intimidating to all of us as we begin to think about our digital shadow, our digital footprints, and those implications on the privacy that we value. This convocation hour, we're going to spend time in more of a dialogue. My name is Dr. Kevin Trowbridge. I am Assistant Professor of Public Relations in our Department of Public Relations here at Belmont. And our panelist features 4 of our students who are public relations students, and they're currently enrolled in our social media public relations course, where that is a course that we spend considerable time talking about developing one's personal brand and one's personal identity in the social space, but then bridging the personal presence to an organization's presence. So by learning and thinking about how social media can be used to advance an identity on a personal level, they can then bridge that and support organizations and causes. So today's panel, we hope to be much more of a dialogue. I have some questions that I will ask the panelists, but then at the same time, we want to open it up so that you can contribute to this dialogue just as much as listening to the panelists speak. So without further ado, we're going to get started, and I've asked each of the panelists to briefly introduce themselves. I'm just going to join them at the table and have this conversation, and then if you have questions, in between my questions for the panelists, I'll open it up to you and give you a chance to ask some questions and even contribute some thoughts. So let's begin with some introductions. We're going to start at the other end of the table and work our way from your left, your right to your left.
Hi, I'm Ryan Bukowski. I am a senior public relations major, a federal minor. I've been dealing with social media for about 20 years. I'm an adult student, so when the internet first took off, email first took off, I was there. So I'm kind of in the same shoes as you guys now, because you guys are dealing more with social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, kind of the same concept.
I'm Kramer Deans. I'm a senior social entrepreneurship major here, and I've been involved with social media thinking involved for about 10 years now. That's about how long Facebook is around roughly. So I've been pretty much completely submerged in it and seeing the evils and the good things.
Hi everyone, I'm Haley. I'm a junior public relations major and marketing minor, and I love social media, like I'm assuming all of you do as well. I've been pretty involved with social media since I was probably 14. I started with Facebook because I wasn't allowed to get on MySpace. Yeah, so it's been really interesting to kind of see how social media has transitioned. And now as a college student, trying to see how to incorporate that into becoming a professional.
Hi, I'm Emily Gaynor. I'm a sophomore public relations major, dance minor. And, you know, I've had social media pretty much just like everyone else has on a personal level, but it's been interesting to try to, look at it from a strategic point of view and, worry about privacy and stuff like that, because I really didn't, at a younger age, and also trying to incorporate social media into an organization and hopefully integrating that into my career. So it's been different, but it's been really fun.
Thanks to the 4 of you for joining us. A study released last month by the American Press Institute found that millennials, and most of the panelists and most of you in the room are millennials, found that only 2 in 10, so 1 in 5, 20% of millennials worry about digital privacy, all or most of the time. 46% said that they worry only a little, and 34% said they don't worry at all. So how concerned are you about digital privacy, and what concerns you most?
concerned about my privacy online, but I kind of think about like going outside your home. You're constantly in danger every time you step out. You could be walking across the street and get struck by a car, unfortunately. But you don't let that kind of encapsulate you and keep you from doing what you need to do during the day. So when I'm online, I'm obviously thinking, oh, I could get hacked, I could get my information compromised. But like what Patrick was talking about, you do want to take up some sort of level of proactivity and know what's out there, know what happened, but at the same time, you shouldn't do something because it's something that hacked information. If they really wanted to, they could. Like, yeah, Frank Patrick, he said, our passwords probably will be compromising something. And that's where the reactivity comes from. Now that you've been hacked, you gotta maybe change your password to something that's a little more challenging. Maybe adding a pound sign here, adding that symbol there, and just mixing it up a little bit, make it a little tougher for someone to hack your information.
I would have to agree. I mean, I am aware of it, but I wouldn't say that I'm consumed by it. But I've noticed recently, I'm more so starting to get a little paranoid about like, oh, like if I post that, like, will this happen? Or like, just, I guess maybe thinking about it a little more now. Now that I'm older, thinking about, the repercussions that could come from just posting, without really a cause, just posting just because I'm kind of thinking about intentionally posting things that I want to post, not just posting because,
I've just kind of had the stance of most 20-year-olds. I'm like, oh, that could happen, but it probably wouldn't happen to me. I've seen it happen to other people, but it won't happen to me. That's weird. So, and I have just started to become, more interested in it only because I'm trying to reach, a broader audience, not just, my friends on Facebook and things like that. Now that I'm trying to, kind of have a presence online, I have to think about it more, but I'm still kind of at the stage where I have kind of like all the same passwords for everything, So I guess I have to start, thinking about, making something a little more complicated and just, writing them down, keeping them somewhere, just so that I have that safety.
For me, I'm more if I get something suspicious, a suspicious email, I'm more cautious if it's coming from someone I know, or if it is coming from someone I know who's embedded. I learned a long time ago to hover over the link and see where it goes to. My parents actually had their computer compromised a couple of weeks ago, where they opened up the computer and said, you need to call this number. And it was from, the message was from their service provider. At least that's what they thought. So I'm going to call the telephone number that was provided. And it was someone who is not speaking very English very well. And then the scenario happened where the representative on the other end said, oh, hold on, let me get you to the tech department. We'll see how much it costs to fix your computer. And at that moment, my first question to her was, why did you even call that number? Why did you call your service provider? And her response was, what? So being online and trying to be safe and secure is important. But again, like Kramer said, you can't let it rule who you are.
And probably that's a challenging question to think about because after hearing Patrick speak, and we were forced to think about putting ourselves in a more visible place in the online space, we become more conscientious about it. Let's sort of segue and talk a little bit more about that, because one of the ways to combat some of the threats that we face online is actually by developing a robust presence online, taking strategic and cautious steps in the places that we go, but building that presence. So what are some of the benefits that you have seen, even over the past few months, of building and maintaining an online presence? presence?
I would say that for me, it's a really great way because as a student, I feel like you need to have an outlet where you can express who you are, what makes you different, and showcase your skills and your abilities. And having a social media presence, I feel like is a really special way to do that. We're always doing interviews and stuff like that where we're saying, like, this is who we are, this is our resume, but if you go on someone's Twitter, you can kind of see their personality and you can see a different part of it. And you have control of that. You have control of the image that you send out to everyone, whether it be potential employers or your friends or family. And I think it's important to create that image because if not, I feel like someone else will create it for you and it might not be what you would want it to be.
I think that having a very solid foundation online is a good tactic for when you apply for a job because it kind of sets you apart. Because we all have social media, pages and things like that. But when you have dialogue with other people on your blog posts and things like that, or you're sharing other people's content and giving your own opinion, kind of sets you apart from other people our age. Not just having your own personal, oh, I did this today, it's something a little more, professional and educational to show your employer.
She's still my just to add to it, the one thing that I've really learned is the optimal time to send out your information, or not your information, but your brand information. For me, it's really, I like numbers and I like to look at the things and see how things work. For me, experimenting with that and seeing how many hits I get compared to, if I post something at, say, 12:30 compared to if I post something at 12:35, I've been seeing a difference of about 20 to 30 hits just in that 5-minute time frame. I got very cool.
I think we should just pick back off of what Emily and Haley said. Social media presence or online presence, it's just a great way to keep your name out there because you never know what something might say about something. I'm very into cancer awareness and things like that. So I started posting my blog posts on my Instagram and Facebook, and people either had inspired and sort of these different foundations have direct message me saying like, thanks so much for posting this, I really appreciate it. We'd like to work with you and stuff, and that was just we started our blog project this semester, so it's just really awesome to see just how far presence can really go.
So Kramer, you mentioned the idea of building community around subjects that are of interest. We see that whether it's in gaming or whether it's in a cause-based issue. The others mentioned a little bit more the strategic approach to shaping your identity so that you have greater control of it. And as you control your footprint and develop that robust footprint, it's less likely that someone can develop an alternate identity for you. Because research continues to show that prospective employers, prospective significant others are Googling, they're Facebook stalking us, they are looking at our social presence, and so let us build a presence that gives them some good information. So what are some of the ways that you have and you plan to continue to really develop and evolve your online presence?
Was that directed towards Kramer or just general?
Actually, to all of you.
Okay. I've been able, with this class, I've been able to see fellow classmates, what their strengths are and what they bring to the table. And that necessarily don't. I've been collaborating on a couple of different projects with a couple of classmates, and it's fun because you know what your strengths are, you know what theirs are, and you collaborate to create this content that not only pushes your brand, but also pushes their.
I think it's just interesting to explore like new upcoming different social media strategies. Like this morning we were recording a podcast, a video podcast. I'd never thought that I would ever record a podcast, but it's just different ways to get people engaged with you. You can use blog posts, and that's good, but a lot of people have blogs. So trying to find something that's new and different that keeps people engaged and keeps people's attention is just really interesting to explore.
Yeah, I totally agree with what Emily said. And I think too that a really great way to kind of continue to build your audience or your social media presence is to try new things, which is really difficult for me to do if I'm being completely honest. Because if I get in my normal set day, trying something new is a little scary sometimes. But what I've learned is that you're just also going to stay in the same place that you are, whether it be in life or in social media, if you keep doing the same thing that you're doing every day. So get out there and try something new. You might fail, but that's okay. Because you're trying something new. The podcast that we did this morning, I had so much fun. And now I'm like, hey, we can actually do this. Whereas before I was like, are you kidding me? No, no. But I think just trying new things and, learning about each other. I mean, we're in a great place as students where we can really get to know our fellow classmates and really play on each other's strengths and use each other to kind of build ourselves up.
And I think an online presence gives us the ability to try something new, like the same. For me, I haven't done a podcast before either, so I got started listening to them, and we actually sat down and did it. It's just amazing how you get your voice out there, whether it's through typing, tweeting, Facebook status, or doing a podcast, and then reaching out to everyone in the community. You might learn something new. I could learn something new today from Patrick. Today I learned something new from talking to everyone here. So it's just really cool how you connect more, connect better with online presence rather than trying to network through friends of friends. It's such a better way to directly opportunity. It's such an awesome way to propel yourself to different kinds of back.
And your online presence, I don't think it just, contains your content. You also need to think about engaging with others and sharing others' content. Because when you just put out your own stuff, it can kind of seem a little less genuine when you, also share other people's things. And I heard, we talked to the guy who wrote our textbook, Ryan Bukowski, and he kind of had a 80-20 rule. 20% of your own content, 80% of others' content that you share. I think that, kind of makes you feel genuine and makes others realize that, you're not all just consumed by yourself. You're paying attention to other people's content as well. And I think, that just helps yourself grow, and, you can have conversations with them about their content and just learn new things from others.
So this is very much a shift in the mindset from that self-promotion that characterizes a lot of novice social media use, where you're tweeting about what you're experiencing and doing and what your opinions are, to begin to engage around an area that is of interest to you. And even in our class, we have looked at and sort of a model and described. We start out as consumers of social media, but then we start producing content that is very self-centered. But there are so many other uses of the digital tools of connecting and curating content that is still supportive of your own identity, but you begin to share that with others and establish yourself as a participant in a larger dialogue, a larger discussion of what's happening in a specific industry. It could be in a healthcare industry or a music industry. But one of the things that the panels have mentioned is the idea of experimenting with new technology, and that's for the idea of having a platform and outlet to create. And that created content, the things that you're doing in your classes right now, could easily become great material and content that you would share that could benefit others. I mean, that's the idea of scholarship. That's the idea of research. So you take that paper that you wrote, and maybe it becomes a little bit of a motivation, not just to write the paper for the professor who's going to read it, but instead write a paper that it can actually be enlightening and informative to another audience. Take that paper after you've submitted it and spend the summer turning that into content that you might share to an audience that could benefit from that. So, any additional thoughts on different ways that you build an online presence?
I think too, something that we've learned in this class that we're in right now is be in the conversation. You don't have to lead the conversation, but whatever you're interested in, whatever community you want to be part of, just be in that conversation. And not only will that allow you to meet more people, but it allows you to, kind of get your foot in the door and try new things. So you don't have to jump right in, just be a part of the conversations and just try to create a community rather than just, this is what I'm doing today, this is what coffee I got today. Like, just try new things.
I would add to that, a really important part of building an online presence is to find your niche. What motivates you? What makes you happy? What would you want to research and talk about and things like that? Because if you don't really have, any niche, you can get lost in all of the different things that you're talking about. You don't really have a path. And if you start, to build that online presence with that niche, people will come to you and see you, as someone who has a critical opinion in that. Because if you're just all over the place, you won't, no one will come to you to talk about a specific thing because you're just talking about everything. Then there's no credibility there. So, just think about what you want to talk about, what you want to write about, really what's your passion in life.
To build up on that too, I discovered it was very frustrating at first because I wasn't getting the traffic to my site. And it dawned on me that maybe my voice isn't, or the audience that's coming to my site is not the audience for me. And vice versa, because I've read a few other of my classmates' blogs. And while what they're talking about is important, it's not something that I'm interested in. So that was kind of the realization to me, that just because my voice doesn't hit an audience, that they'll take offense to that.
Let's take a little bit of a break and open it to your questions, your thoughts, your experiences, so we can have a dialogue with people. So, any questions, comments, thoughts based on what you've heard from the panelists?
So you guys all talk about building a brand, building yourself online. Let's say that you have that brand, you build yourself up, and a company you work for, an outside company, comes to you and says, hey, like this thing or share this thing and I'm going to give you money or a job or something. Or the job you're working for says, hey, we're having a job fair, I want you to share this on your social media. Is there a line there? Is there a betrayal of your audience? Is there a betrayal of yourself that you built up? Or is that something that's acceptable to do in our kind of connected world?
Great question. Yeah, I think that's the question. I think it's just your judgment. Like I said, I like to talk about cancer awareness. I'm curious and things like that, and also I call myself the one to be goofy as well. So I really try to focus on sharing content in those areas. So I built myself up to cancer fire, and if someone comes right now from audience when I give them advice. I wouldn't actively partake in that realm because it's not what I do, and I don't want to sit out the wrong information or give his expertise the wrong name. So I think it's just kind of judging what you can help rather than always like, oh, go to my site. It's like, why should I go? But I can tell Ryan, you should probably use certain hashtags, use certain social medias to get across your own brand, your own niche.
I think too, great question by the way, I totally agree with what Kramer said. I think too it's a lot about knowing who your audience is. And when you have something, someone came to me and said, hey, will you post this? Is this going to benefit my audience? And if the answer is no, then I would not post it. Because if I build an audience and I just start doing ads and stuff like that, then the genuine connection that I hope to build with my potential audience is lost. So if it's something that would benefit my audience, then sure. But if not, then I wouldn't do it. And I think it's just knowing that. I think it's knowing your audience and understanding what would help and what would hurt.
I feel like if it, you can incorporate it in a natural way, then yeah, like if that has something to do with your niche, like what you're writing about, sure, said benefit your audience. But if it's something like super random and it wouldn't sound genuine, I would say no. I mean, because that's not the reason why you're writing anyways. You're writing to talk about what you're passionate about and, be in dialogue with those people. So if it's something random, I don't think it would be beneficial.
So if it's something that's natural and fits, should you disclose to your audience that they paid you, let's say, $5,000 to post about that? Even though it fits and it hits your target audience, should you have to disclose that somebody paid you to say that?
That's a good question, and I think it just depends on you. Like, if you feel like that would make you more genuine, then yeah, but I feel like most people would kind of know that anyways. So, it might be awkward to say, hey, they paid you to say this. But if it does benefit your audience, I think they would appreciate that you told them about this company or whatever, even if they didn't pay you.
One of the things that we've emphasized is the importance of using social media to build those relationships. And at the heart of a good relationship is transparency. And whether you disclose an amount that you were compensated, and for most of us, there aren't too many companies that would pay us $5,000 to promote, just to mention something. But even if they were to send you a free book and say, would you review this? There's still a sense of obligation to let your reader know, let your audience know that, I received a free copy of this book, and I'm reviewing it, and then identify the positives and the negatives of that. That happens all the time in marketing, in social media marketing, where companies are targeting mommy bloggers. They're targeting a specific audience, sending them free products for the blogger to try. And that can hold true for you as you develop that audience. One of the things I thought was really interesting is how the panelists have talked about knowing your audience. And early on in the semester, when we had that conversation, it's no different than when you took your fundamentals of communication class, know your audience. But when you think about the social media space, whether it's a blog, whether it's your followers on Twitter, it's difficult for us to naturally begin to think about we have an audience. Who is our audience? And sometimes we have to start with who do you want your audience to be? So that you understand that dynamic, and then you can make decisions about the content that you create and the ethical decisions about what kind of disclosure and how you disclose it in choosing to share that kind of content. Good question. Other questions from you?
For my internship right now, I actually manage, because in my company, I'm not really worried about people going on to it and hacking the wedding site. But maybe if I was being a publicist of a celebrity and managing their social media, how do I find some security in that if my boss is giving away all the password information to everyone that works there?
My first question is, why does that need to know the password? An accountant doesn't need to know the password to the back end of the website because probably not going to use it. But as far as managing, we've dove into Hootsuite to use as a management tool. Hootsuite is not for everyone. It is. I enjoy it, but you can designate inside Hootsuite who teams who has access to what. So that might be a good. And then looking into a third-party management software might be a good way to curve that, as opposed to everybody getting username or password.
And what you're describing is a fairly common practice for organizations as they're trying to figure out how to manage their social media. So instead of investing in some applications that would allow for permission-based rights, they share it with a number of people in the organization without actually training them, without having a social media strategy in place and policies to guide what kind of content is actually created and then distributed through their social media channels. So taking that step back of who needs that access, and it doesn't need to be just one person necessarily, but designating those individuals so that they know the power of the password, that they know the content, and they know when to share. Other questions from you? Because that actually makes a nice segue into, we've talked a little bit about your developing a personal online presence as you create content, but let's tie it back into privacy for a moment. Where's the line between sharing too little and sharing too much?
I think it goes back to knowing who your audience is. I mean, if your audience expects you to, if you've built a trust with your audience and they expect you to be transparent, you need to be transparent. I don't know. For me, in researching other blogs and other podcasts and content, I can kind of sniff out who's being genuine, who's being genuine. And I think you need to kind of know yourself too. Whenever you start, how much information are you going to share with your audience? You don't feel comfortable sharing a lot of information, you just want to be more of a conduit of different types of content from different areas. Areas is not the right word. But I lost my train of thought. Started off so well. But I don't know. For me, I just feel like you need to kind of know who you are first before you take that step on what to share, what not to share. And is it going to be relevant?
I totally agree, and I mean, it just goes back to knowing your audience, really. And I mean, like, I've learned that as much as I would like to think it, my Twitter followers do not care what I have for breakfast. Like, they just don't care. But post what is relevant, and post something that is gonna benefit your followers in some way. Don't post just a post. And I think too, like, I always have the issue where I go crazy. I'm like, hey, look, Ellen says this and this and this and this. Like, if I go to a concert, I'm like, the whole time I'm videoing or Instagramming. And at some point recently, actually, I'm like, you know what, take a step back. It's like, learn to live in the moment, and you don't have to post everything. You don't. Like, people don't have to know where you're at all the time or what you're doing. Like, enjoy the moment. And I think that for me, that was kind of like a light bulb moment. Like, yeah, it's cool to post stuff, but don't let it consume you, and post what will have an impact on your followers. Don't make it all super self-centered posting all the time.
Back to like content information privacy, I would say that you can still be transparent and genuine, like by sharing your personal thoughts and feelings and things like that to your followers instead of your personal contact info. Like, they'll still think that you're genuine because they can relate to you, but you don't have to say, hey, this is my last name, you know, oh, I live here, let's meet up, you know, or something like that. You know, you can still be transparent without compromising, you know, where you are, your personal info, and things like that.
Yeah, there's definitely that line between sharing too much too little. Sometimes really blurred. So it's like pretty much the thing what everybody says, like layer yourself. And to add on to knowing yourself, I like to think when I post something out there, something on page, like if I have a photographer for a family who's really interested in the art I posted about how pictures using the rocks, like possibly trying to attract males to the society. And I just thought that was pretty interesting. So like I posted, I don't know if that's seen that on anybody else's. So I felt like I could post about that. And sometimes what I post is just a random question that I have of the week. Might sound silly to you guys, but I felt like it could have been a good question to get dialogue started. Was part of it was like, man, in the world today, like, is it part of like approaching women or approaching men? Well, I thought it was really cool, and it turned out to be a really good conversation. About 5 or 6 people comment on it, and it was a great dialogue. So I think that should be a question people say, like, is this going to promote a positive dialogue, whether it's a conscious, negative, or positive? Is it going to help people have a conversation on them, grow, perspective? I think kind of working in that will help you narrow down your posting and not posting. Without running out of sit that
So by remembering that things you post are public, they are permanent, and we've heard that phrase public and permanent over and over again. But think about the application of the technology that's developing it. It really appeals to the content that we want to be ephemeral, we want it to disappear. But be reminded that the content isn't just about us. It is about others, and I hope that you're hearing panelists say that over and over again. It's thinking of a job, it's thinking about someone else. Even his comment about living in the moment. It's about living in the moment that you have, and you don't have to share it because we're missing out even as we're trying to capture it to share it. But living in the present. What are some of the risks that you guys have faced or you've thought of as you begin to establish your online presence? And then a big question is, are those risks worth it?
I think in any form, but especially in social media, you know, you're posting who you are essentially, and that's kind of a very vulnerable place to be, especially when you start getting into blogging and stuff like that. And so it's hard to put yourself out there. I mean, it really is, because you don't know how your reader or your audience is going to interpret it. If I'm having a conversation with you, I can tell by tone of voice or body language or anything like that, kind of like where I'm coming from. But if you're reading it, like, you don't know how someone else is going to take it, or if they take it the wrong way, you know, different than what you wrote it. You know, so that's always really scary, and two, you know, because it is out there, no matter what, all the time. You know, someone using it for something other than what you wrote it for. You know, like that's scary, but I think that's just a risk of being on the internet, and I think that it is worth it because you do still have a voice. You know, or otherwise you wouldn't be on that stage.
I mean, I definitely struggled with, oh my gosh, if I post this article, are people going to post? But no one agrees with me. But I think it's beneficial when you do have those conversations with people who do agree with you, who say, you know, oh, I really appreciate you, you know, posting this because, you know that inspired me, or why somebody has the same opinion or something like that. You know, I think it's definitely worth it when you see those moments. And, you know, you're able to say, okay, you know, yeah, some people might think I'm stupid, but at least one person Your body.
So I use my site to post my photography, and so I'm really scared that somebody's going to steal one of my images and it's going to blow up and be huge, and I'm not going to be compensated for it. But I've taken the added step of actually adding a digital watermark to my work, and I actually get reports. I can set it up either weekly, daily, monthly, quarterly on if my image has been taken off my site, where it's been taken to with the IP address, and tracking that way. Most of my images are watermarked to the point that you can't use them unless you have obtained permission from me.
Just kind of, I want to risk created is I know something going against what I believe my company should be, or something that I'm not really compromised how my business will go, how I look like here in the field. So, but in that regard, I kind of take part in proactive activities, whether it's thinking about what kind of conversations is going to be, how I word just like the post introducing the post. I can say something completely innocent, like to any of them, it could be derogatory. So, but I think it's worth about that making a decision for you. You don't know in depth, even something about cancer awareness or something like that can really change someone's life and get them to figure out like how they can help. So somebody in their family is not a sufferer, or someone they go to suffer on themselves on suffer. So I think really it's just like an accusation. You have to do it.
Well, as you put yourself out there, as you make yourself more vulnerable by being an active participant in social media, have you ever encountered, have you ever been trolled, or have you ever had any of your information or content compromised? And so how did you respond? And if not, because you may not have you thought about how you would respond to this?
Yes, to having my information compromised. This is a really crazy story. I love Starbucks, guilty. And so I have it on my phone to where anytime I'm like near a Starbucks, my little gold card pops up on my phone. And I noticed that when I was in Starbucks one day, when I got home that night, someone had somehow hacked my iCloud and hacked my Starbucks account and charged like $400 in gift cards from my bank account and then transferred them onto another gift card and it pulled that gift card off of my phone. And it happened while I was in the Starbucks, like the few minutes that I was in there. And so I went to call my Starbucks, just like the branch, to try to see what had happened. I had like never had them in my phone or anything. And so I dialed the number, and it was actually saved in a contact in my phone under the word predator. Don't know how it happened. Called Apple, and they were like, "Well, apparently, like that can happen. They can hack your iCloud and do all this stuff." So like that was terrifying. Regardless of having money taken out of my account, to have like contact added, all that stuff was really creepy. But I realized that it was like also kind of my own fault because I had really like passwords for all of it. I had like the same password for like everything. So don't do that. But at that point, I literally went and changed everything and made them like each website like a different password, which can be problematic if you're like me because then I forgot them all. But it's just important to I think just have variety in your passwords and just be safe and like turn off your Starbucks like location tagging because it's not worth it. You can just pull it up on your phone later. But yeah, that was pretty scary.
I my social media control once, but like like my actual cell phone number before. And it's like it's pretty frustrating. I kind of know how it happened. It wasn't just like random. It was in high school, rival basketball team. Somehow it got really personal. Somehow my number got out to like a rival team, so like people were like texting, calling, but like I was trying to like, leave me alone. I'm not trying to have any issues. Just leave me alone. Now I'm just ignoring them after a while. It's like they're behind a safety of computer screen or cell phone screen. Like they're not really saying it to my face. So it's like I feel like the credibility is on it. If you don't have the gall to come up to me and say whatever you got to say to me, I'm not going to get it. So like that's how I kind of maneuver with controlling it. Kind of neutralize me. I'll just respond like, hey, I know what your purpose is. I'm sorry to feel that way, but don't contact me again. And they keep trying. I just see you're behind it. Like from better terms. So, like, but it is fine line when we just talk about the victim thing. Just be careful. Just like, not just keep letting it happen. Do something about it. Whether it's live, do person, contact, whatever, social media, on whether it's Facebook, Twitter, Vine, or whatever. It's just take actions that way.
And I feel like, I mean, I've never been hacked before, but if I were to be hacked and they like posted something inappropriate on my Facebook or website or whatever, I feel like if you establish a strong enough presence where everyone knows what you would post, knows that you wouldn't post anything inappropriate, like I think people would understand, you know, oh, unless you got hacked, they probably know, I'm fine. So, you know, I mean, it sucks. Like, I've seen it happen to people on Facebook all the time. You know, they'll tag you in a advertisement photo, or, you know, they'll send you a message to a link or whatever. And so I think people, you know, understand when that happens and that's not really you. So I wouldn't be too stressed about it. But when it comes to, like, contact information, yeah, that's really scary. But I've never really had that. So.
I haven't been hacked with an email. I think that's pretty common occurrence. If I was, there's been a few organizations that I have observed and looked at and how they handle their hacking and their trolling, and they do it and poking fun at themselves. And for me, that makes me trust your brand more. So that's probably how I would.
Well, let's sort of wrap up with some best practices and tips, and you guys be thinking about it as well. What are some measures that we collectively should and can be taking as we establish our presence in social media? But what are some measures we can take to really protect our privacy, protect our identity, and keep those things secure? So let's start with Kramer and then work down and with mine. So we're making a little bit of circle and then open it up to you guys.
Go through the pain of creating a password. Yeah, it sucks. It's just like, I figure out something that's not like too easy, nothing too hard. I don't remember, but it's worth it. And big, I have a bunch of different accounts, but I have really important passwords that kind of cycle through. So if you do get into one, you might just get like one profile. That's it. If you're trying to upload it, have the same password, somehow feel like hack it. Not all your information is like in there and whatever they want. So I think just creating that great password, creating like which will create content that people are used to coming from, like they're used to it coming from. So if something outrageous does pop up, they're not like, oh. That's exactly talk about food and some awareness. It's inappropriate. popped up, something might be going wrong. It should not whether it's important.
I would definitely agree. Change your passwords. Change your passwords. And also something that I've really started doing is know your privacy settings. I know that can be a pain sometimes, but take the time to go in to your social media networks and see, okay, what is being shared, who is it being shared to, and there are things out there that I don't want out there. So I think just be aware of everything, be aware of what you're posting, be aware of and in my mind, if I ever have any doubt of could this be compromising to my, contact or identity or anything like that, just don't post it.
I would say just have a game plan. If it does happen to you, what are you going to do? Don't let it creep up on you and surprise you. Just kind of think ahead of time. And if you do have a troll, don't get super angry about it online. That just kind of makes you look worse. So just kind of, calmly say, I don't appreciate this. Just be kind of nice, professional about it. Don't, start cussing at them or something like that, because that just makes you look bad. That's the whole reason why they want to do it anyway. So don't give them that satisfaction.
And I agree with Haley on your settings. You may think that you have something hidden in your budget, and you actually don't. Another way I try to contact is that I try to pick and choose which social media network I'm in and what information goes through. On LinkedIn, I have my telephone number. That's the only place I can go. I don't understand why someone on Facebook or serving your telephone. If they're close enough to certain issue, I have it. That's just another way for them to gain access to information.
How about you? Any best practices, tips that you could share with the rest of us?
So one of the things I learned early on that started my first website was to get a PO box. When you register a website, your address becomes public domain for who's registered to that website. So I ended up having some stuff sent to my house that I didn't want because of trolls. But after that, I got a PO box and registered everything else to a PO box.
Patrick mentioned this, but password managers are fantastic. LastPass is free, and just it is how I keep up with my 20 million passwords, because I never remember them all, or I would lose the paper that they were down on. So totally think that that's like a good, quick, easy step that you can take to be more safe.
Great ideas. Others? Well, if not, thank you to the panelists.